He'd proved that sound effects could be as powerful as music in telling a story. And he'd showcased the potential of electronic instruments, which were becoming increasingly sophisticated as the decade went on. Within just a few years, both these possibilities would be explored in very different films. This is an original Moog synthesizer from the mid-60s. As you can see, the keyboard is pretty understandable. Albeit only one note at a time. But it's this huge set of modules here that gives you the sounds and changes them. And if you think of the variety of options you have with all these here, in order to understand this, you really have to have as much of a scientist's mind as a composer's. But in the mid-1960s in New York, a young man emerged who had both.
Now I'll patch this up here into one of my output modules and try and show you how with these primitive sounds we start to get some very musical sounding things. First of all, here's a
Walter Carlos had been a musical prodigy who went on to study physics and music and was an early user of the Moog synthesizer, helping to advise on its development.
High fidelity system. And by hitting a note on the keyboard now, I'm connected up so I'll hear that one sound. It's a very low sound. It's very bright.
And in 1968, Carlos used the Moog to create something rather extraordinary. Switched on Bach, an electronic rendition of the composer's music, which went on to be a best-selling album. The second LP was one of the first records I ever bought. For me, as a young musician interested in electronics, it was a game changer. And Carlos's cutting-edge take on the classics was about to cross over into film. Carlos heard that the director, Stanley Kubrick, was making a new picture. A grim, uncompromising, futuristic one. Much of it shot here at Thamesmead in London. A picture that might be the ideal platform for Carlos's synthesized classical sound. Kubrick had never shied away from difficult material, and this was to be his toughest film yet, and music had to be central to the story. After all, as it said on the poster, A Clockwork Orange deals with the adventures of a young man whose principal interests are rape, ultraviolence, and Beethoven. Unsolicited, Carlos sent Kubrick an electronic interpretation of Beethoven, as well as an original composition. Kubrick saw their potential, and alongside conventional orchestral recordings, the finished film would also feature Carlos's renditions of Purcell, Rossini, and Beethoven. Here, Beethoven's Ode to Joy is given an almost comical swagger, matching the cockiness of the film's protagonist, Alex. It's bright and cartoony, echoing the clothes and the set design. The brilliance of Carlos's music is that it complements the orchestral sounds, but adds another layer. The electronics make it sound not only futuristic, but heightened and energized, as if we're listening to Beethoven on mescaline. In fact, it's hard to imagine what Kubrick would have done without the enhanced musical palette that Carlos's score provides. To cure Alex of his psychopathic violence, his beloved Beethoven music is co-opted into a form of aversion therapy, ultimately turning him suicidal whenever he hears it. At the climax of the film, a conventional recording of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony subtly morphs into a distorted rendition by Carlos, taking us inside Alex's head, giving us music we know in a new and terrifying way. Like Forbidden Planet, A Clockwork Orange benefited hugely from an outsider, by their own initiative and unsolicited, sending what they understood in the way of electronic music to the filmmaker, and thereby, for all of us, greatly enhancing the possibilities of the soundtrack.